We are going to get the showdown we hope for in the NBA Cup. Are the Detroit Pistons the Magic's biggest rival today on Locked On Magic?
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is August 13th. It will be August 14th, 2025. My name is Phil Prospermike. I'm the senior writer at OrlandoMagicDaily.com, credentialed member of the Orlando Magic media since the 2012 season. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we've wanted a rival so bad, and I think we're going to get one. Why the Orlando Magic and Detroit Pistons rivalry is about to boil over in the NBA Cup. And who is the Magic's biggest rival? We're going to get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic. You can be one of our Orlando Magic dailies and make Locked On Magic part of your day every day, especially get in the habit now. Just get in the habit now of listening every day. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe wherever you download podcasts. Get into the habit now, because once the season starts, we are going to be full speed ahead for this very, very exciting season. You can check it out. You can check it out wherever you download podcasts, all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. Tomorrow is schedule day. So let's just start here and say, join me tomorrow. We will have a full breakdown of the Orlando Magic's 2025-2026 schedule. Send me any questions you have. We'll make it a whole thing. We're not going to go live or anything like that. But I'll break down the entire schedule tomorrow. Today, we got the NBA Cup schedule. We already knew the opponents. We already knew who was in East Group B with the Orlando Magic. It's the Boston Celtics, the Orlando Magic, the Detroit Pistons, the Brooklyn Nets, and the Philadelphia 76ers. The entire NBA Cup group play schedule was announced along with the early round of Amazon Prime games. And the Orlando Magic, we all kind of, I view Group B as the group of death because, the Magic, it's more because of the Magic and frankly because of the Sixers. The Magic are not the 7 seed. They should not have been in pot 3. But because they finished 7th, they were in pot 3. So wherever they ended up was going to be the group of death. And then on top of that, you get the Philadelphia 76ers early in the season before all the injuries take them out. This is not an easy group. And I'm still a little higher on the Boston Celtics than a lot of people are. The Celtics, the Pistons, the Magic, and the Sixers, all 4 of those teams think they're going to make the playoffs. The Nets, sorry, guys, love you, but no, you're not. This is a tough group in an Eastern Conference that feels very, very, very wide open. Nevertheless, the Magic are the favorites. We'll do the FanDuel ad read later, but the Magic are the betting favorites to win Group B. The Pistons are second. And so when this group came out, you could go back and listen to the pod that I did on this. When this group came out, I said Magic Pistons is going to be the game. It is going to be the game that will say so much about this team, about this upcoming season. Just that opponent alone just feels like it has a lot of weight. Now, I would say the same thing if the Magic were in the same group as the Cavs or the Knicks. These are measuring stick games. Now, Orlando will open their group play on November 7th, a Friday night, against the Boston Celtics. It'll probably be the first time the Magic have played the Celtics since the playoffs. And, we don't really know what that team's going to look like. We don't really know what the Magic are going to look like, to be perfectly honest. It is going to be a big game. Scheduling it opposite UCF Space Game makes me angry because I cover UCF and I'll be at the UCF game that evening. But it is a big game, and that will have a big game feel. But it won't be anywhere near as big as the Magic's game against the Detroit Pistons on November 28th, Black Friday, if I'm not mistaken. The Orlando Magic take on the Detroit Pistons in Detroit at Little Caesars Arena, and that game very well could determine who wins the group. Now, games against the Pistons are already pretty intense. These are two physical defensive teams. They take a lot of pride in their defense. They are not afraid to hit you. They do not back down from anybody. Over the last 2 seasons, the Magic and the Pistons have had 2 pull-aparts already in this rivalry. And so this has been something simmering under the surface. This has been something that, like, Magic and Pistons fans know is a thing. And look, I have nothing but respect for my Pistons fans. I am extremely happy that they're back, that like the Magic that were in the wilderness for so long, and being back in the playoff picture is great. I do not wish any fan base to be in the wilderness as long as the Magic were. I am always happy when teams figure it out and climb the ranks. But let's be real about this too. The Detroit Pistons last year finished 6th in the East. They had a very good series against the New York Knicks, really good showing against the Knicks. And if I'm Detroit, if I'm my friend Ku Khalil from Locked On Pistons, I'm probably sitting around asking, why is no one talking about us as a potential contender in the East? Why are the Orlando Magic getting talked about more? Ku, like, again, I love Ku. Ku is my guy. We're going to probably have him on to discuss some of these issues and preview this game in the summer, because I think it's worth having that conversation again. Ku had about a week ago now, had a whole segment about NBA.com's ranking of the top players in the Eastern Conference, where Paolo Banchero was ranked 4th and Cade Cunningham was ranked 5th, or maybe it was 3rd and 4th, but Paolo was 1 spot ahead of Cade. And he, like, look, he's going to defend this guy. I'm going to respect, I absolutely respect that. I took some issue with his arguments because they lacked context. And that context being Paolo Banchero was hurt. A very serious oblique injury. It took him a month and a half. It took him 5-6 weeks to fully recover from that. And as I pointed out, the Paolo efficiency leap has already happened. When Paolo was healthy, after the All-Star break, and even if you include the first 5 games of the season, but after the All-Star break, Paolo averaged 29 points per game on 48% shooting, 33% from 3. The free throw shooting still needs some work. I'm not going to sit to pretend Paolo's fixed all of his efficiency issues. But those who sit around claiming Paolo Banchero is somehow this inefficient stat scorer, they're wrong. And unfortunately, in the world that we live in today, everybody wants to make comparisons, and it's easy to make these lists and do all that. I'm not going to sit here and trash Cade. Like, Cade is a really good player, and I respect Ku for defending his guy. I want him to defend his guy just like I'm defending my guy. The joke that I made in the aftermath of that episode being released is, it's tired to talk about who's better. They're going to go out and prove it on the court. The wired thing is to ask who's going to beat them in the 2028 Olympics when they're playing together for Team USA. Cade is very, very good. He's going to be an all-star this year, just like Paolo is going to be an all-star this year. We can debate whether, Ku thinks that Franz is better than Paolo. I would disagree with that, but they're both very, very good players who will both be all-stars this year. But this is the makings of a rivalry, right? There is, I don't want to say beef, although there is certainly some beef on the court. There's been some fights. There's been real fights between these teams over the last 2 years. But there is very much a sense of, there are limited spots at the top of the Eastern Conference. And, we can pencil in Cleveland. We can pencil in New York. Orlando and Detroit are 2 teams that haven't proven anything. They've shown promise. They've shown signs, but they haven't done anything. And there's only 2 spots in the conference finals. There's only 1 spot in the NBA finals. It is a zero-sum game. So as much as I would love to not put somebody down to lift my team up, the fact of the matter is only 1 team is going to get that spot. And when you look at the up-and-coming teams in the Eastern Conference, it's the Orlando Magic or the Detroit Pistons. And so this is what the NBA Cup is for, to start forging some of these rivalries, to start building some stakes early in the season. It may be manufactured. Not every team may believe in them, but this is what the NBA Cup is for. And so that game, November 28th at Little Caesars Arena, is a big one. That is a game with loads of meaning. That is a game with something on the line, likely a spot in the NBA Cup quarterfinals or NBA Cup semifinal, quarterfinals. a chance to potentially host a game with some stakes and some meaning. This is how rivalries are built. Rivalries are built in games with stakes and meaning. When two teams have to fight over something and only one can get it. A good regular season game can mean a lot. And I'm not going to sit and pretend that regular season games can't be big. But there's a reason why everyone says rivalries are made in the playoffs. Because ultimately you have to take something that the other team can't have. You lose a regular season game, even if it's a good game or an emotional game, you got another game in a day. You got another game the next night. The Magic probably going to be back-to-back coming out of Philadelphia on Tuesday on NBC. Yes, the Magic got a national TV NBA Cup game against the 76ers. They'll probably have a back-to-back the day before Thanksgiving, before they spend Thanksgiving in Detroit to prepare for that game on Black Friday. The Magic-Pistons rivalry is going to be a real one. And I think we're going to start to see something that's been simmering under the surface, that's been known between Magic and Pistons fans, perhaps. I think a game like this with stakes and meaning is when we start to see it boil over. I'm excited because I'm still a believer in the NBA Cup. But with the Magic now maybe shifting their focus, does the NBA Cup still matter? Let's talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. Here in Orlando, we have the option of pretty much any NFL team we want because we don't have our own NFL team. So if you are a Jaguars fan who is really into the Jacksonville Jaguars this year and believe this is their year, guess what? They're plus 290 to win the AFC South. That's second in the division behind only the Houston Texans. If you think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are about to win there, I think it's their fifth straight NFC South. They're even money, 1-to-1 odds, plus 100 to win the NFC South this year. If you think they're going to win the Super Bowl, or let's say you're, again, Jaguars fans, you want to vote for AP Defensive Rookie of the Year. Let me see if I can find their AP Rookie of the Year. AP Defensive Rookie of the Year. Travis Hunter's going for plus 1,300. If you're looking to say, oh, I don't believe this, but maybe you believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are about to win Super Bowl 60. We're already at Super Bowl 60. Unbelievable. The Bucs are going at plus 2,500. Not bad odds there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who could be sneaky, very, very good. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. If you've listened to me on the show, and you feel free to disagree with this, I believe in the NBA Cup. I am a fan of different types of competitions, spicing things up. I'm a big fan of big corporations like the NBA, and again, it's a corporate entity. I'm a big fan of corporations trying new things and trying to think outside the box. You are free to believe the NBA Cup is this manufactured, silly little thing that the NBA did to try and steal attention during football season, and it doesn't mean anything. And to some extent, you're right. You know, you get eliminated from the NBA Cup, or if you're out, the Magic have been very fortunate, and for me liking this thing, we've been very fortunate that the Magic have been involved in the NBA Cup to the very end. The Magic overall have a 6-2 record in 2 years of this competition in group play. Again, those two losses are very, very bad. They were, they had to sit and watch as the Boston Celtics took away their chance to win their group and advance to the quarterfinals in 2024. They made it to the quarterfinals last year, only to have Franz Wagner get hurt before their quarterfinal game, and then really played a strong game against the Milwaukee Bucks in that game. That game was just so. I was very happy to watch that game live. I would put it that way. It was a very special night in Milwaukee, even though the Magic ultimately came up short. You really saw the heart this team has. whether you still believe these things matter or not, I don't know. Like, I'm a believer that these are super competitors, and getting them to buy in is still the trick and still what matters. And maybe not everyone around the league is bought in. But at the end of the day, when you put a trophy in front of these guys and a little bit of extra cash, they're going to go for it. And I think that's what we've seen from this tournament. I think that's why it's been largely successful. The Magic is a team when this NBA Cup was created. It's only been 2 years, so it's not been very, very long. Not like a sterling rich tradition in history. Like, I would say this, when I was in Milwaukee, the Bucks made a big deal out of it. And I think that says a lot about the buy-in of that team. That was a veteran team. They were not happy that they lost in the semifinals to the Hawks or to the Pacers in the first edition of the Cup. They were determined to win it. And I would say fans were very, very into it and determined to win it. That was a heck of a game that both teams played that night in Milwaukee. The Magic over the last 2 years have had this posture of we're still trying to prove ourselves. And I'm a big believer that like the NBA Cup is really, really good for those kinds of teams. It's good for the Pacers. It kind of gave them confidence that we can hang with the best teams in the league. Early on in that 2024 season, the Magic playing well in the NBA Cup, getting that big Black Friday win over the Celtics, marquee game for them. That was confidence for them for the rest of the season. For a team that hadn't played in the playoffs yet, hadn't really played a game with significant stakes, to be able to put those pieces together and deliver something, deliver a win, a big moment, to deliver that, I think was really important for their development. And even last year, playing essentially that NBA Cup, those NBA Cup games without Paolo Banchero, to win them the way that they won them heading into that game against York, to have like a 32-point cushion heading into that game against the Knicks, which they almost blew. And that again was a sign that, okay, that there's something not real about this. And the Magic will need Paolo Banchero eventually. And then to play the way they did against Milwaukee, I think it was still ultimately very good. The Magic have not hidden that they have these championship aspirations. The Magic have not been shy about saying our goal is to win the NBA championship. Our goal is to go to the NBA finals. And we're not here to win the East. We're here to win the NBA. That's what Jeff Weltman said. So does the NBA Cup still matter? Is this still an important piece of their development picture? And how you answer that question might depend on how you view the NBA Cup. If you're someone that thinks the NBA Cup is some gimmick that does not matter, then the NBA Cup never mattered. Then it never mattered for the team's development. Those points they made about the Magic winning big games, irrelevant to you because the Cup is silly and dumb. I'm obviously not of that opinion. I think the NBA Cup's been very, very good for this team. And I don't think they like put special emphasis on it, but I think the Magic are very aware of these games and give it that importance and do believe it has helped them grow and develop. And especially for this team early in the year. The last 2 years, the Magic had a lot of continuity. And I remember like talking about these NBA Cup games and saying the Magic are going to play well because they know how to play together. Well, the Magic still have a lot of continuity this year, but they're adding Desmond Bane. They're adding a new player to the mix. And, as excited as we all are about Desmond Bane, we don't know how this works. And so the NBA Cup, once again, is an opportunity to make a statement. It's an opportunity to make a statement across the league. The Magic earned the group of death in the Eastern Conference. They're going to get a national TV game against the Philadelphia 76ers and a Sixers team that maybe is at full strength, maybe it is going to be a formidable challenge, or maybe that's going to be the stage for the Magic very early in the season to let everybody around the league and all the pundits around the league know we're for real. We're a team to reckon with. And like I said, beating the Celtics, beating the Pistons, beating the Sixers, playing these big games with some stakes involved in them to get another big national TV moment, to get another big showcase moment. The showcase moment, the like national TV stuff, I don't think the players necessarily care about, but it's another point to build confidence. It's another point to say, we are as good as we think we are. We are the team that so many are we are the best version of the team that so many are predicting us to be. And I think confidence goes a long way. I think confidence is so important. And getting that belief, and I know I've mentioned this before with the NBA Cup, that confirmation of belief that we are as good as we think we are. I think that's why the NBA Cup still matters. That's why I think the NBA Cup still matters for the Magic. Even if the ultimate goal this year is to win a championship. I think most of us think that's probably another year away. But that changes if the Magic lift a trophy in Vegas. That changes if the Magic come out as the best team in the East in November or December or whatever it is. All of a sudden, those expectations shift. And now all of a sudden, you have to believe this team is a lot better than we thought they could be. The NBA Cup is not the be-all, end-all. Failing in the NBA Cup does not mean the season's over. I'm not putting that much importance into it to say like, oh, the Magic, didn't get to the semifinals. They didn't go further in the NBA Cup than they went last year. Break the team up. It's a failure. No. But it is a good status check to say, this is how good we can be. And if everything keeps going right, you get better as the season progresses. The game against the Detroit Pistons is a big one, and it has me wondering, who are the Magic's rivals? We'll talk about some options coming up here in just a moment. I feel like rivalries have to be a little bit mutual. And I would consider the Pistons a friendly rivalry. Like there's some animosity. Like I've Koo's a good friend of mine. I love Locked On Pistons. I'm really happy for that team and that organization, that franchise. I want to see the Magic and Pistons battle each other in the playoffs. And again, playoffs are where you really build rivalries. And obviously the Magic have not been in the playoffs very much. They have not faced the same team very much. They haven't had these battles very much. And so I don't know if we have a rivalry quite yet. I think it's very clear to see that the Pistons and Magic are kind of scraping against each other. There's some friction there. There's definitely some friction between these teams. And just judging by the fan bases, again, I love Koo to death. I disagree with his arguments there. And I'm not going to sit here and, I don't know who's better. I frankly don't care about those arguments. I think they're silly. You play the game and it's a team sport at the end of the day. I'm happy the Magic get Paolo. I'm happy Kate's playing well. But the fact that I keep addressing it says, okay, there's a little something there. And again, that's why I think this NBA Cup game is so big. It's why I pointed to it when the NBA Cup groups were announced. It's why I'm pointing to it again now that we know it is the last game of NBA Cup group play for Group B or for the Magic and Pistons in Group B, and could very well decide who advances. Again, a game with stakes is how you really get hatred. And so we've seen some friction, but I don't think the Magic and Pistons are quite at the level of rivalry yet. There's definitely potential. The seedlings are there. Obviously, the Magic's rival, I think, is the Heat. Just proximity, the way the Kia Center gets split down the middle, the way, frankly, Magic fans took over the Kaseya Center back in October last year, really made a statement with that 30-point win on opening night against the Heat. It was crazy being in there and hearing play the song chants. There is like legitimate animosity. Like, I don't know how much the Heat necessarily view the Magic as a rival other than just the proximity of it. I generally think Orlando-Miami rivalries are a little bit one-sided, where Miami is the established town. They've got the glitz and glamour, and Orlando is this like upstart little brother that just wants to be noticed. And the Magic have obviously gotten their wins. Orlando City swept Inter Miami in soccer this year, and we'll see if they end up playing in Leagues Cup in a couple of weeks. But very big win for the Lions over Fort Lauderdale there down south. Yeah, I called them Fort Lauderdale. Don't at me. The fact that the Magic and the Heat are playing each other in San Juan, like that's going to be a charged atmosphere. Again, it's a preseason game. It doesn't matter. But I would say this. I think over the years, because the Heat have been so much better than the Magic, when the Magic beat the Heat, it has meant something to players on the team. Like when Nikola Vucevic's teams beat the Heat, that meant something. The Magic having that gigantic comeback last year against Miami, that meant something. Like that meant something. It was just a huge win, but it meant something, as did winning on opening night. And again, like losing the way that they lost in double overtime in January, the buzzer beater a few days after that win over the Heat, that comeback win over the Heat. There's definitely some spiciness to this thing. Plus the fact that their division rivals are guaranteed to play each other 4 times. There's a little bit of heat there, and no pun intended. There's definitely a little bit of sizzle, and it's a natural rivalry that I think Magic fans certainly have adopted. I don't know if Heat fans have as much. I think the other big rivalry the Magic have is the Hawks. Now, the Magic and Hawks have played each other in some meaningful games. They played in that play-in tournament game last year, and the Magic just, I wouldn't say wiped the floor with the Hawks. They led by 20, gave that lead up, and then went ahead by 20 again. And that was a game with humongous stakes and all that. But then there was also that game late in the season that Orlando won that essentially clinched the Southeast Division for them early, before that final road trip of the season. I don't know if there's bad blood, especially now that George Niang isn't on the Hawks anymore, because Paolo was chirping with Niang, and Niang's got some history with this team from his days with Cleveland. But this is going to be a real rivalry because Kristaps Porzingis is now on the Hawks, and I'm sure he has some bad feelings for Goga Bitadze after what happened in the playoffs last year. But they're going to play each other 4 times again. We know that. The Hawks, I think, are a very serious threat to be the 3 seed as well. I think they did a really good job this summer. Trae Young is always feisty, and the Magic have at times flustered him with their defense. Jalen Suggs gets into his grill pretty well. Orlando has defended him pretty well over the course of the last year or two. I think there's a little spiciness there too. Again, I think some more games, some more stakes would help cement that as a rivalry. But the Hawks, again, division rival, a team that the Magic see a lot. There's definitely something there. I think the Pacers, if the Magic and the Pacers had a playoff series, I think that would become a rivalry. I think that's very quietly a bigger matchup around the NBA than the league wants to admit to itself. Because the Magic's defense has really been the only team that's been able to kind of slow down Indiana. But even then, Indiana's come up with some crazy comebacks and some crazy moments against this Magic team because, again, you just can't fall asleep against Indiana's offense. It's just so good. I would love to see, I've said this before, I would love to see a Magic Pacers series when Tyrese Haliburton is healthy. I hope that, during this run that the Magic are going to have over the next 3-4 years, we do get to see that matchup, and we do get to see the intensity of the unstoppable force versus the immovable object. I think this year we're going to obviously put it on hold. The Pacers are going to be a very different team without Tyrese Haliburton. We'll see, again, I don't know how good Indiana's going to be. They might, they're taking a gap year this year, just like Boston is. And Orlando has some, Orlando-Boston is definitely an interesting rivalry as well. It's interesting rivalry potential as well. You've got the relationship between Paolo and Jason Tatum. I think Paolo very much looks up to Tatum. There's a lot of similarities between how their rosters are constructed, or how their rosters were constructed. They've played a playoff series, but they played a lot of intense games before. And obviously, again, it's a little bit one-sided because when Boston comes to town, it's a big deal for Orlando. That you get a split stadium, you get this really charged environment. Orlando's had some big wins over Boston, and the playoffs were a slugfest. The playoffs were a war that Boston was probably always going to win, but a big deal nonetheless. So the Magic have some rivalry. And then we didn't even get to Cleveland, where they played this 7-game series. I don't think that's necessarily a rivalry quite yet. I remember exiting that series just saying, I don't think I've been involved in a 7-game series where the teams and the fan bases just came away respecting each other so much more. There's so little bad blood. It was just these are just 2 really good teams trying to figure themselves out, and they got a lot out of the series for their future development. Obviously, Cleveland did what they did last year, and Orlando, I think, is kind of beginning to circle the wagons, and we'll see if that matchup gets a little spicier this year now that the Magic are trying to punch a little bit above their weight class. So there's clearly some options to be the Magic's rivals. I would say the Magic's chief rival is still the Heat. I think that's the game that brings the most emotion, both for the players and the fans. But I think that has the potential to change this year. Again, we'll see who the Magic face in the playoffs. I think the Pistons are a real good option to be this really, really, intense game. There is a scenario out there where Orlando is the 3 seed or Orlando's the 2 seed and Boston ends up the 7 seed with Jason Tatum back. That would make for, I think that's kind of everybody's fear about the rest of the season here, that Tatum comes back. And I don't think he's going to be like Jason Tatum, but I think that's everyone's fear, is that Boston like gets the 7 or 8 seed and they're not really a 7 or 8 seed, kind of like Orlando. Orlando is really a 7 seed. Like I'll concede that. But I think Orlando is still establishing their rivalries and this is going to be a year, now that the Magic are more serious about winning, where Orlando starts to kind of make some waves, step on some toes, and start to tick some other teams and their fan bases off a little bit to get where they want to go. Like I would say this, the playoff series against Boston, we were talking with the other Boston reporters about the Magic season and about this team. And there was a lot of respect for the Magic's defense, but like having to watch the Magic for 5 games, they're just like, this is just a drag out fight. And like me and the other Magic writers would look at them and it'd be like, this is how every game is all season. This is just what they do. They're just gonna, they want to drag you into the mud and just get you as dirty as possible. And, they may not leave the pit, but you're going to get pretty dirty coming out of it. That's just how the Magic had to play last year. And that can grate on people. And I think even Celtics people think that having played the Magic in the first round weakened the Celtics substantially heading into their series with the New York Knicks. That was a series that the Celtics needed to finish as quickly as possible. They could not have afforded to go to a 6 game. And even then, obviously it was not enough. There is a lot of potential, a lot of opportunity in the season ahead. It's going to be a fun season. I've talked to a few Magic players. The Magic players I have talked to over the summer, they have expressed the same excitement for this upcoming season that a lot of fans have. I think there is a lot of eagerness to get this thing going. And so obviously the first step of that is to get our schedule. The Orlando Magic and the NBA will release their 2025-2026 season schedule on Thursday. That's what we're going to talk about on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. So that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. You, of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all the fun places you download podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can find us on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find us on Twitter at @OMagicDaily. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. Now that you're done making Locked On Magic your first listen of the day, go make your second listen the Locked On NBA podcast, because there is no offseason, especially today. Doug, Matt, and Hayes keep you up to date on contract negotiations, rumors, schedules, and everything you need to be the most informed NBA fan. Find Locked On NBA or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. We will break down the Orlando Magic schedule on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.